Mapperton House in West Dorset has been the ancestral seat of the Earls of Sandwich since the 1950s, when the Montague family moved here from Hinchingbrook House in Cambridgeshire. This part of Dorset has always held a very special place in the family's history, so I head to the archives to trace the origins of the Montagues and explore our ties to this beautiful part of Britain. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock. I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset. Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all. So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses. Well, here I am again looking through the archives, but I've brought in a special guest, you, my husband, because I'm hoping you can help me with something. It's, your family is just, it's like this journey of discovery. Every time I head into the muniment room or open up a letter or find a book, I have more and more questions. And so today I'm hoping you can help me. I found this book that was made for your great-grandfather, George Montague, the 9th Earl of Sandwich, by his sister. And it's fantastic, these ancestral tablets. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a work of art. Have you seen these before?
I have never seen this before, and until you've shown me. And what seems extraordinary about it is the time that Olga, who was the sister of my great-grandfather, spent putting it together, because it doesn't just trace our family tree, it has all the related branches of other families, and it shows the kind of interconnectedness, and it does it in 3D because you've got these little windows here where you can see through and have people on multiple pages.
So that you're understanding the connection.
You're understanding the other family trees, because everybody wants to show off the fact that they're connected with all these other aristocratic families. You can see that we've got the Hardwicks, Earls of Hardwicks, we've got the Duke of Bolton on another page.
So you know all these sort of shields here, don't you?
Well, I know some of them. But what's so fascinating about what you've uncovered here is the lineage going back beyond the first Earl of Sandwich. The Earls of Sandwich began, as we know, in the 1600s.
Exactly.
But obviously the Montague family goes back much further than that. In fact, we go back all the way to William the Conqueror. And if you trace back what we can see on this page,
yes,
you can see we've got Sidney, then we've got Edwards, Thomas, Richard, William.
All these Montagues.
There's generations of Montagues going all the way back to the time of Henry III. And you've got William Montacute.
Yes, so I can see where the name changes. So I see Montague, 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 and then there's a...
It starts to become Montacute. What you've got to remember is that in those days, spelling there was a lot of variation, a lot of fluidity.
Right.
Montague probably came from Montacute and vice versa. Sometimes there was an E on the end, sometimes there wasn't. But what's interesting about this is that we get back to William Montacute. Now he, I believe, was the grandson of somebody called Drogo de Montague. And Drogo de Montague was a French nobleman who came over with William the Conqueror from Normandy. And there is a place in Normandy called Montaigu-les-Bois, which means Montague of the woods.
Right.
And Mont-Aigu in French, Mont, hill, mountain, Aigu, sharp hill. So Drogo de Montaigu came over, but the
Right.
story gets really complicated because he came over with William the Conqueror
Give me a year.
in 1066.
Thank you.
And as part of the Norman conquest. William the Conqueror was William, Duke of Normandy,
Yes.
and he was best friends with Robert, who was the Count of either Mortain or Moreton, again a name that was spelled in different ways. And that chap, Robert, was given the town, the area around what is now Montacute,
Which is very near to here.
which is very near to here.
Yes.
Drogo was given land in Somerset, near somewhere now called Shepton Montague.
Oh my, which again, still near to here.
But this other chap, Robert, eventually gave Drogo de Montacute,
Oh my
and a
goodness.
place called St. Michael's Hill. And St. Michael's Hill is also a pointy hill.
Right.
So you've got a pointy hill in France, and you've got a pointy hill in Somerset. And somewhere between those two pointy hills is the origin of the name Montague.
Well,
But what's most fascinating, of course, is that one of those pointy hills is quite close to here, and we've
Yes.
never been.
so you're telling me right now that I can trace this back, that really that is the place in Somerset, could be the origin, if you like, of Montagues as we know it today.
I think it almost certainly is.
That ancestral tablet was fascinating, but I decided to go a little bit deeper, and I went through the entire archives where I found something absolutely extraordinary: the family tree, all the way up to the 4th Earl of Sandwich in the 18th century. The tablet shows the entire Montague family tree, how we came from Montacute, and how we're related to King Edward I, and also William the Conqueror. You may be wondering where the Montague lozenges, which appear on our coat of arms, originate from. So I asked my father-in-law, the Earl of Sandwich.
The 3 diamonds signifies the mountain reflected in water. Montaigu, the sharp mountain, the Norman French word. And the eagles come from the Mont Therma, much earlier connection. It's in the Middle Ages. And the coronet above.
And the coronet above.
Seeing the archives, and of course speaking to Luke and my father-in-law, has put me in the mind to go in search of the site of the Norman castle of Montacute.
I'm rather excited because I am here in Montacute, and right up there is what I've heard, the site of the original castle. So fingers crossed, but you can see it's quite steep. I've got my wellies on, I'm kitted out, but what is also astonishing as I look around me is just to sort of, here, I'm walking on the land that was once owned and then of course walked on by my husband's ancestors nearly 1,000 years ago. So come along with me, get some wellies on everybody, get your breath switched on, that's for sure. We've got a hike. Breathing, breathing, breathing. I'm loving these 2 trees here. And of course, sometimes I wish I could go back in time and become a tree surgeon and be able to tell how old these trees are, but probably not 1,000 years old. However, probably the path that my husband's ancestors walked. Now, I hope you've been breathing. The key is to make your exhale just a tiny bit longer than your inhale. It works. All right, I see a clearing. Whoa. Oh my goodness. Wait till you see this, everybody. It's magnificent. Yay, everybody! We've made it to the top. And this was, of course, the site of the original Motte and Bailey Castle, which was built right after the Norman conquest. And those Normans, they were clever. They chose this spot to showcase their political presence, but also this is the perfect vantage point right here. Now, standing behind me, this tower was built in the 18th century. However, over the years, the castle decayed. And the last thing that was kept standing was the chapel, but that decayed as well in the 16th century. It was gone. So in its place, in the 18th century, was built this folly. And I can see a door, an entrance, it's open, so I'm gonna head on up.
For me, it was so amazing to stand on the site of the original Norman castle keep and see where the Montague family originated from in the 11th century. I cannot believe it, but yes, the Montague name technically is 1,000 years old. Not far from Mapperton, across the fields in this beautiful corner of West Dorset, is the estate of Hook Court. This estate was once owned by the Montague family. Many of you know that we had to leave the family ancestral seat, Hinchingbrook House, in 1955, and we ended up here in Dorset. But why? Well, there is a reason why, and all is explained by my father-in-law.
Well, this is very exciting because we are in the newly decorated, renovated muniment room, which is the archive room. And
I cannot believe it's the same room it was. It's completely transformed.
And it's
wonderful.
It's wonderful and it's comfortable as well. So around us we have now a lot of the archives of the family, and one of the archives that I came across when I was moving things out and then back in is, of course, this connection that Mapperton now has, if you like, the Montague family here at Mapperton has had with Dorset, and that is because of what's called the Bolton Estates. And can you explain that to me a little bit more about how this land, I think it was about 5,000 acres at one point, which is adjacent to Mapperton, came into the hands of the Montagues?
Yes, I mean, it was originally the 5th Earl of Sandwich's marriage that brought that Hook estate in, but they didn't have it for all sorts of reasons, tangles with lawyers and so on.
Right.
And there were two sisters, not twins, but two who inherited the estate, and that's why it took almost 100 years for it to become properly partitioned, and the part that was inherited was the Hook estate.
Was the Hook estate. And I've seen all of the coat of arms at Hinchingbrook in the library where it's impaled, because you would want to marry somebody of a noble family. So the 5th Earl married, was it the Duke of Bolton's daughter, a noble family?
Mary Paulet, yes, that's right. And the Duke of Cleveland was the other part of the family, and it was his daughter who was the other heiress. And it really is still too confusing to describe. But the important thing is we didn't get some of it, we got Hook estate. And I think Devon was the area of much of the rest of the property.
Right.
Devon and further north into Somerset.
Right. So the 5th Earl, we can say in one sense, married a Dorset Devon girl. Is that correct?
That's right. She was certainly connected, but it was also around Hampshire Basingstoke, we call it now, Old Basing House.
Yes.
Also was a Paulet headquarters, but
Right.
that was not in the family. That went separately.
So the fifth Earl, and might I add, is I always like to say this, was the fourth Earl's son, the fourth Earl, who is, probably
well known. Yeah.
is very well known. He marries the Duke of Bolton's daughter, Mary Paulet, and here what I have found is the Bolton estate. I found this as I was putting the archives back, and this, of course, describes what was in the Bolton estates. And if I just go to the summary page, you can see here, there is where Hook is mentioned. And I recognize a couple of these farms because I think they're still part of Mapperton Estate. Is that right?
Well, running down the list, obviously, Hook is no longer itself part of it, or Toller.
Right.
But we have retained Northport and some of Powerstock and some of Witherston.
Yes. So I just thought that was wonderful just to see this, and to make sense that there is a connection and really a long association of the Montague family down here in Dorset.
Well, we go back to 1760s, that sort of time, the marriage of the fourth Earl's son, John, the fifth Earl.
I am planning on visiting Hook because the building is still intact. It's beautiful. And I think that's where, when we look at this visitor's book, and I found Alberta's name, must have been her first visit in 1906, 1 year after she married George.
Oh, yeah.
But they would stay in that building. And that's what I wanted to ask you. There are sort of carvings of not only the carvings from Duke of Bolton and perhaps those three swords, but are there sandwich carvings as well?
Well, they were brought together in the shield. I think that was why.
Oh my
Can I
goodness.
just have a look at this?
Yes, of course. Ooh, well,
Which is Alberta's?
right here. So Alberta Montague, October 2nd to the 15th.
Oh, that's amazing. So that was her first entry.
That was her first entry.
Yeah.
So I do feel that Alberta even has a presence here as well. You know, she was coming to Dorset, and we can see from this book.
But Hook, I think, was really only a shooting home for them. It was a second home from Hinchingbrook, and they would invite the sort of families who had shotguns and came for maybe only 2 days and go back again.
Right.
So it was important as a staging post, but it was never a senior property for the family.
I will let you know what I find when I go and visit Hook Court, and I'll be sure to take some photographs for you as well, especially if I can find sort of the Bolton and Sandwich Montague together. Yes. Here in the staircase hall at Mapperton, right behind me, is a gorgeous painting of Alberta Sturgis, the 9th Countess of Sandwich. And it was painted by Ambrose McAvoy, who was considered the society painter of the early 20th century. And every time I walk around the staircase hall, I feel that Alberta's watching over me. I recently came across this letter in the archives that honestly, I was so excited about. And she wrote this while she was at Hook Court. So you can see the letterhead says Hook Court. It's October 12th, soon after her marriage to George Montague. And she wrote it to her, my beloved brother, Hollister. She writes, "This is such a heavenly country, very hilly, high hedges that almost meet one's head, now black with blackberries, and such lovely thatched villages." She then continues to write, "I met yesterday our neighbors at Mapperton Court, about 4 miles from here. Never in all my life have I seen a small Elizabethan home so beautiful." She continues, "All old oak and wood paneling, diamond panes, creepers outlining every window, clematis, lavender, and honeysuckle. And when I found this letter, there really aren't any words to describe the emotion that I had knowing that Alberta not only had visited Matmerton, but also said never in all of her life had she seen a more beautiful Elizabethan manor. So there's a part of me that feels we were meant to be here. Oh my goodness. I have arrived at Hook Court, again, once owned by the Sandwich Montague family, but also, you know, I'm walking where Alberta walked. This is where she stayed. And I now know that she stayed here in 1906. The first time she came here was, of course, referencing the letter that she left us was in October 1906 when she wrote to her brother and saying what a heavenly country it is. Now, what's interesting, what I see right away is the Duke of Bolton's coat of arms right there. So it has the 3 swords and very, very weathered, as you can see, but definitely you can make them out. So that's fascinating to see that. And just looking around the building, these windows, beautiful. And the color of the stone is very similar to Matmerton. And this does represent the stone around West Dorset. But I am looking for any other carvings that would, you know, tell me that the Sandwich family Montagues were here. Now there we go. I was about to say, I do know that the 8th Earl of Sandwich, who came here, again with King Edward VII, he liked to show off his power. In particular at Hinchingbrook, there's a lot of his markings there. And lo and behold, we have found one here. You can see Sandwich, and of course, showing there are the 5 sort of balls. Even though a coronet for an earl has 8, when it's facing straight on, you see 5 of them. And that says 1873, and then with a big S for Sandwich. So I know he did a lot of repairs and restorations to Hook Court. I almost feel as if this door, Alberta would have walked through this door, absolutely. But it really is beautiful and heavenly country as Alberta described it. I mean, if we just walk over here, there's this lovely pond here, and very much like Matmerton, if you like, just kind of in the middle of nowhere, very remote, lots of bird song, beautiful heavenly day. And you know, I do wonder if I've come across any more letters of Alberta at Hook Court, which I'm sure I will. Be interesting to see if she swam in here. I mean, as many of you know, I'm a big cold water swimmer, especially at the pool, the 18th century pool at Matmerton. So I do wonder if Alberta was a swimmer herself. But it really is absolutely magical here, and I can see why Alberta did enjoy coming here and thought it was splendid, absolutely splended. Well, I think those are the 2 markings that I was really looking for. One of the Duke of Bolton and one of the Earl of Sandwich. And that's that marriage, and it all sort of happened here. Oh, I might just do a little walking now, because I think Alberta would have done that as well.